Imagine this, strapping a bunch of machine guns to your back, pulling the trigger and blasting off into the sky. Sounds crazy, right? Like something straight out of a science fiction movie. But could it actually work? Could the sheer power of bullets firing propel you upwards like a rocket? It might seem far-fetched, but the idea of using explosions for propulsion isn't that crazy. After all, that's exactly how rockets work. They burn fuel to create a powerful blast of gas that shoots out the back, propelling the rocket forward. So, could machine guns do the same? Could they generate enough force to lift a person off the ground? Buckle up, space cadets, because we're about to dive into the world of physics, engineering, and some seriously wild ideas to find out. Before we talk about machine guns, let's talk about how things actually fly. See, airplanes and rockets don't just magically float. They use things called jet engines, and these engines are basically controlled explosions. Think of it like this. You blow up a balloon and then let it go. The air rushes out the back and the balloon zips around the room, right? That's basically what a jet engine does. But instead of a balloon, it's a metal tube. And instead of your breath, it's burning fuel. This burning fuel creates a super hot, high-pressure gas. This gas gets forced out of the back of the engine with incredible force. And because every action has an equal and opposite reaction, the engine, and whatever it's attached to, gets pushed forward or upward. That's thrust, my friends, and it's what makes airplanes soar and rockets reach for the stars. Now back to our machine guns. They fire bullets which are basically tiny projectiles propelled by a small explosion. So, in a way they're kind of like mini, less controlled jet engines, right? But here's the catch: size matters. A single bullet doesn't have nearly the same mass or velocity as the stream of hot gas shooting out of a jet engine. And the amount of thrust something generates depends on how much mass you're pushing out and how fast you're pushing it. Think of it like this. Imagine flicking a pea as hard as you can. Now imagine throwing a bowling ball with all your might. Which one do you think is going to have more force behind it? That's the difference between a bullet and the exhaust of a jet engine. Alright, time for some math. Don't worry, we'll keep it simple. Let's say a typical machine gun fires a bullet that weighs about 0.04 ounces. That's 0.0025 pounds for you decimal lovers, at a speed of around 2,500 feet per second. To get off the ground, you'd need enough thrust to overcome your weight plus the weight of the machine guns and whatever crazy contraption you've built to hold them. Let's be generous, and say you weigh 150 pounds, again with all the gear. To lift you up, you'd need to generate at least 150 pounds of thrust, probably much more to account for inefficiencies and the fact that you're not a perfectly aerodynamic rocket ship. Now, even if we ignore things like air resistance and assume every single ounce of energy from the exploding gunpowder goes into pushing you upward, which it wouldn't, you'd need to fire an insane number of bullets every second to create that much thrust. We're talking tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of rounds per minute. That's not just impractical, it's downright impossible with current technology. And let's not even get started on how you'd carry that much ammunition. Section 5. Did anyone try this? History's flying firearms. You might be wondering, has anyone actually tried this? The answer, surprisingly, is yes. Back in the early 20th century, a few inventors tinkered with the idea of using recoil from guns for propulsion. There was this one guy, Herman Ganswint, who designed a rocket car that supposedly used recoiling cannons for thrust. Did it work? Well, let's just say the historical record is a bit fuzzy on that one. And then there's the whole gyrojet concept, projectiles with their own built-in rocket motors. These were real, and they did fly, but they weren't exactly practical for personal flight. More like mini missiles than something you'd strap to your back. Section 6. Beyond bullets, other ways to take flight. Okay, so maybe machine guns aren't the best way to achieve personal flight. But that doesn't mean we can't dream about soaring through the air. There are plenty of other, much safer and more effective ways to take to the skies. We've got airplanes, helicopters, gliders, hot air balloons, and even those jetpacks you see in futuristic movies. Though those are still pretty experimental. And who knows what incredible flying machines we'll invent in the future? The point is, humanity's desire to fly is as old as time itself. And while strapping yourself to a bunch of machine guns might not be the answer, it's that kind of out-of-the-box thinking that pushes the boundaries of science and technology. Section 7. The safety dance. Why this is a terrible idea. Now before anyone gets any ideas, let me be crystal clear: strapping machine guns to yourself and trying to fly is an incredibly dangerous and stupid idea. Like seriously, don't even think about it. First of all, you'd probably just end up shooting yourself or something nearby. Remember those equal and opposite reactions we talked about? Yeah, those apply to you too. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're firing a bunch of bullets one way, you're going to get pushed the other way. Second, even if you somehow manage to generate enough thrust to get off the ground, you'd have zero control over your flight path. You'd be like a human cannonball with a very short flight time and a very hard landing. So, for the love of science and your own well-being, please leave the flying to the professionals and stick to daydreaming about it. Section 8. So, can you fly with machine guns? The short answer? No. Absolutely not. While the idea might sound cool in theory, the physics just don't add up. You'd need an impossible number of bullets, fired at an impossible rate, to generate the thrust required to lift a person off the ground. And even if you could somehow overcome those challenges, you'd still have to deal with the minor details of steering, landing, and not, accidentally killing yourself in the process. Section 9. Keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the stars. So there you have it. The dream of soaring through the sky with nothing but a few machine guns is just that, a dream. But hey, don't let that discourage you from exploring the wonders of science and technology. There are plenty of other, much safer and more realistic ways to experience the thrill of flight. And who knows what incredible inventions the future holds. Maybe one day, we'll all be zipping around in flying cars or personal jetpacks. Until then, keep your feet on the ground, your eyes on the stars, and never stop asking questions about the universe around us.